I was the communication and information head of UNESCO. Uh, I'm going to anchor this meeting for the next 1 hour, 20 minutes, and we should try as much as possible to keep to time. You are aware that this is about the fourth Bako Kutangora Development Foundation webinar, especially during this COVID and post-COVID era. We are going to look at a very important theme today as related to post-COVID-19. Good governance, that's prospects and challenges for promoting social economic well-being of the urban and rural masses. The issue relating to poverty, well-being of the people is at the front of Makoko Tangora Development Foundation. I had several opportunities to have discussed with the founder of this foundation, and what I've heard from her, I think her passion is not questionable as relates to issue of masses in Nigeria. Today, like I said, we'll be looking at not only the rural masses as well as urban masses. You agree with me that a lot of people are in urban areas where they don't even have shelter on their head. But when you listen to them, you hear that they are in Kano, they are in Abuja, they are in Lagos, and so on and so forth. So we'll be looking at issues relating to safety and rule of law, as well as participation and human rights as relate to each and every one of us in Nigeria. Quick one, I'm going to do a very short brief of the agenda for today. We shall be looking at 5 topics of 10 minutes each to be anchored by people who are well specialized in each of the topic. I'm going to call on the founder and the CEO later to give us an opening speech. Before I introduce her, I'm going to just quickly introduce other people that will be doing justice to today's activity. We'll be looking at Dr. Shegun Shega Awosanya. He'll be talking about policy and practices to ensure the Nigerian police are able to provide a very reliable police service to the people in terms of safety and as well as reducing violence or crimes in the country. The next person after him will be Kasim Abdul Kadri. Is the head of the media and communication for National Commission for Refugees. He'll be talking about the sources that have been recorded in the integration of internally displaced person in the northern east and the challenges. We are aware that there are still lots of challenges as relate to that. After him, we'll bring on board Dr. Jide Zubaru Atta. Is a gender expert. He will be talking about the gender dimension, planning, and good governance. Thereof, we'll look at Nigerian's human rights scorecard and how it can be further improved and sustained. And no other person that will be doing this than Ms. Awa Shakarao, the chairperson of Nigerian Bar Association Abuja chapter. Lastly, we will look at Nigerian human rights scorecard. We'll look at the pros and cons of the proposed social media bill in relation to the freedom of expression, association, assembly, and civil liberties. And here, the managing partner of Amun Legal Practitioners, in the name of Saidatu Alila Amun, will be doing justice to this. I'm so much interested in that. I miss out Dr. Onipe. Dr. Onipe will be the second person. Dr. Onipe Adag Benga Yaya. Kim talked about good governance, benefits of financial independence for the three arms of government, that's judiciary, legislature, and as relate to the state level, and how the three arms of government can work together uh, to better the lives of the people and give us good governance. So without wasting much of our time, my people say it is the biggest masquerade that dances last. So allow me to introduce to you our friend, Ajia Awabako Mohammed, the founder and the CEO of Bako Kotangora Development Foundation. She's going to just give us an opening speech and tell us why we are here today. With honor, I want to welcome you, Ajia Awabako, for just 5 minutes open speech. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to appeal to you that if you are not speaking, put your speakers on in mute. We'll only allow you to unmute your speaker when you have question or something to contribute to it. From me, over to you, Madam Hawa Bako. You need to unmute your speaker, please. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to have you here again. Distinguished delegates, esteemed colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to extend to you all a very warm welcome on behalf of our Open Integrated Development Foundation, and to say how grateful we are to the foundation who have accepted our invitation to partner in the upcoming to partner from the series to convey this webinar series. Today's session is devoted to the theme of COVID-19, governance prospects and challenges for promoting the economic well-being of the urban rural masses. Part 2, safety and rule of law. Part 3, participation and human rights. This is the theme which is particularly relevant in the context of our common aspiration to attain inclusive, sustainable development, peace, and security, as well as respect for human rights globally, regionally, and at national levels. It is an opportune time to discuss problems of mutual interest and exchange ideas on the innovative ways government and stakeholders can improve the safety of its citizenry and protection of human rights with COVID-19 in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. Margaret Thatcher once said that being democratic is not enough. A majority cannot turn what is wrong into right. In order to be considered truly free, countries must also have a deep love of liberty and abiding respect for the rule of law. This topic is particularly timely as a result of the #EndSARS protest, human rights violations across the nation, and the security situation of the country. The pandemic has tried and made the inequalities of our societies and the gaps in our systems, social inequalities, poor governance, poor infrastructure, diversion of public funds, all these have affected the majority of the citizenry and is instrumental in recent unrest, as a lot of youth had lost their means of livelihood and became bitter over the uneven distribution of resources. It is gratifying to note that the agenda of today's webinar covers a wide range of prevalent societal issues with interesting topics relating to the safety of human rights, security, political participation of rural urban masses, even distribution of resources, and accountability of public officials. This webinar series is focused on good governance using the Ibrahim Index of African Governance, IIH, as a framework. The four IIH good governance categories are human development, safety and rule of law, participation in human rights, sustainable economic development, sustainable economic opportunity. In this series, our focus shall be on human rights, security, rule of law, which has accountability of public officers as subcategories, as earlier stated. Discussions shall be centered around topics that are most relevant to achieving the targets of the UN SDGs and the socioeconomic well-being of Nigerians post-COVID-19, which can also be adopted by other African countries. I wish to take this opportunity to welcome the participants from Ivory Coast, United Arab Emirates, UAE, other African countries, and the United Kingdom. These participants have joined this series of webinar for the first time. 5 months ago, BKD Foundation organized a webinar on post-COVID-19 good governance, prospects and challenges for promoting the socio-economic well-being of human and rural masses. Part 1, Human Development. The webinar had over 100 persons in attendance with representatives from INGOs, Kaduna State Government, experienced educators, students and stakeholders in the agriculture sector, speakers and participants from all over the world shared their thoughts, experiences, and challenges. They also gave their recommendations, solutions, scaling up successful models to better the socio-economic well-being of the rural and urban masses. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to once again thank our long-standing and reliable technical partners, who helped organize this. Against this backdrop, I would like to welcome Barrister Haweshi Karo, Chairman Nigerian Bar Association Abuja branch, who has been in the forefront of human rights advocacy in Nigeria. I'm also extremely glad to welcome Shehu Sega Awosanya, President Founder, Social Innovation Advocacy Foundation, SAI. Yeah, we're very delighted to see your active engagement in ensuring the protection of human rights in Nigeria. We have been following your work closely and we're proud of you. To our distinguished speakers and discussants, Dr. Onipe Yahaya, Scholar, Nigerian Defense Academy, Kaduna, Saada to Fadila Hamu, Managing Partner, Hamu Legal, Al-Qasim Abdul Head Media and Communication, National Commission for Refugees. Jide Zubair Atta, Gender Engagement Expert, we're extremely grateful for this opportunity to learn from your unique experience and expertise. I'm confident that today's event will help reinforce partnerships, facilitate the exchange of successful applicable models and practices for promotion of the rule of law, protection of human rights, ensuring that police brutality reduces the barriers to tourism, and making recommendations that will ensure serve as a tool toward public office holders being accountable. My thanks also to our moderator, Olushola Makoli, for accepting to moderate. I look forward to the thought-provoking presentation of fruitful discussion. Finally, and most importantly, to the youths who are the leaders of tomorrow, to the government and other stakeholders, I end my speech with the words of RJ, which says, if we do not have justice for rule of law, the society shall be broken. I always tell people that events of the past teach us lessons for the future. We count on each and every one of us who have experienced the social unrest, security challenges, and human rights violations to plead to themselves to do better in the near future whenever opportunity arises. Your voice, engagement, and actions are needed more than ever, particularly as the world responds to these unprecedented crises. We're all in this together. We can only prevail together. Thank you. You're very fast.
Thank you so much. I'm not surprised when you quoted Margaret Thatcher, because you are one of Margaret Thatcher of today, especially in Nigeria. Awa, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. I think that there's a close relationship between safety, rule of law, and sustainable economic development. I equally agree with you that hardly there will be any social development where there is conflict, or where the country is not has the power or capability to protect its people. or uphold the rule of law. With your speech, I know you have been able to open doors for other presenters to key into what you have said and the area where we shall be looking at in today's webinar. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to this wonderful webinar that's going to be looking specifically on good governance, the prospects and challenges, especially as we go through several crises in Nigeria, the Boko Haram, the NSAS, and so many conflicts that you can name. Without much time wasting, I want to say I'm going to call on the first presenter in the name of Mr. Segun Shega Awosoya. Is the president as well as the founder of Social Intervention Advocacy Foundation. You shall be looking at policy practice to ensure that Nigerian police provide more reliable policy services as related to social cohesion. And I'm so certain that no doubt about it. We will be looking at issues relating to NSAS that engulfed Nigeria in October. So if you're in the house, Mr. Segun, I welcome you on board. Mr. Awosoya Segun, I thank you so much as you take over from me. Over. Do I have Mr. Awosoya in the house?
I can't find it. Is this Society for Gender
Equality? If you are still expecting Mr. Awosoya, can I quickly beckon on your son? Yeah. Are you in the house?
Yahaya too is not. Okay, yeah.
Do I have Dr. Yaya in the house?
He just.
Hello, Dr. Yaya is waiting.
Okay, Dr. Yaya, while we are waiting the arrival of Mr.
Yes, Segun.
Do I have Segun in the house? Hello?
Dr. Yaya is waiting.
Okay, Dr. Yaya, you're welcome on board. While I wait Dr. Segun Awosoya's arrival, I would like you to have your presentation.
Okay, how many minutes?
Just 10 minutes.
Okay, 10 minutes. I want to thank everybody for participating in this program. I want to thank particularly the Chief Executive Officer of Bako Foundation for the good work she's doing. The area I'm to speak is about the good governance benefits of financial independence for the judiciary and the legislature at the state level. I have to say it's very topical. It's a very interesting area. We have the independence at federal level, and of course, there's harmony among the three arms at that level. So why don't we have the same thing at the state and at the local government level? So it is very, very interesting when President Buhari, sometimes I think in May, I think to be precise, 22, signed the 10th executive order 10, and people thought the problem was solved. But just to show that later, for obvious reasons, that the president overshot himself, the order was stepped down, and the matter wasn't taken forward from there. A lot of people were disappointed that the executive order was not implemented, because you will agree with me that this will have been an opportunity for accountability at the state level, It will have an opportunity for transparency, the twin level of accountability. It will be an opportunity for management of the resources. Shared competence and local government development. And every Nigerian will have loved the culture of savings because with COVID, it's a very difficult time now. So people are blaming for not saving during the times that oil was selling for a good price, about $140 per barrel. So the argument was that the federal government wanted to save, but the states, based on the constitutions, said that the money must be shared. So there's no argument that if the other 10 had stayed, the point will have been validly made that the twin side of accountability and transparency will have been guaranteed. And of course, you will agree with me that the state will have been independent, which is very, very important for the judiciary and for the legislature. But let me make this argument very quickly. The state governors are the most powerful elements in Nigeria constitution. Essentially, they're almost out of control. Constitutionally, they're supposed to be controlled by the House of Assembly, but they are not, essentially, because most of the boys we discovered that the extension of the executive arm. So we have a problem in our hand. So, as sweet as the president wants the state governors to ensure that there's financial autonomy of the houses, the judiciary, but it is obvious that physical independence or financial independence, what you so-called autonomy, is not really the primary interest or the priority of the governors. And of course, the president had no choice. He can use executive orders as far as ensuring executive actions are taking place, programs are implemented, ministries, departments, and agencies, carried out their jobs. But the Constitution is the ultimate, and the Constitution doesn't give the president the legislative powers or the judicial powers. So it's left for the governors if they really want the financial autonomy at the state level. And practically speaking, though they were clearly outlined in the executive orders, the issue of state committee to be set up, the budget committee to set up to make the money, it's going to be very challenging how this is going to be implemented. But there's no doubt that if we can get the judiciary, if we can get the legislature to be away from the executive, then we can guarantee, some level of independence and some level of good governance, which is good for the rural population, the urban masses. But as it is, the situation is now, it is obvious that we're not going to get there. The objective of the objective of the presidential order was to ensure that these arms at the state level, at the local government level, can have some kind of independence. But see where we're coming from. We are coming from a situation where there's no stability, where there's no health care, where there's the constitution does not, look at the situation now. There are a lot of rural areas don't even have health care, and that's a problem. The prevalence of crimes are very high. Of recent times, 1 week now, some boys who are schooling in Kesson State, and there's a popular knowledge that they have been kidnapped, which is terrible. Okay, there's a very poor health. Our arts and culture, the attitude is very, very poor. So, in fact, Nigeria recently was rated as number 3, ahead of Syria and I think Bangladesh, if I'm correct, in terms of livable cities. Okay, and that's not good enough. And Syria has collapsed. Syria is in serious internal and external war. So Then, of course, the ranking of Nigeria as third livable cities by the intelligence arm of the financial intelligence unit. I mean, that's not healthy at all. Look at the culture and environment. I mean, it is terrible. Quite a number of very friendly on cultures we have here. Education is a problem, you know. So we have our own challenges. I know that, you know, but the government of the day, particularly the state governments, will have to ensure that physical independence is guaranteed at the state level. No matter the good intention of the federal, the constitution doesn't allow the federal to be able to interfere at the activities of the state. So it is left for the governors, the 36 governors, including Abuja, if they want to see physical independence at the level of the states, which we hope will bring a good governance as it is now. In fact, in some states, the governors are actually, the legislature and the judiciaries are actually, particularly legislature, which is an elected body, is an extension of the executive, really speaking. So we don't have democracy, in action. So we hope that we separate the powers of the executive from the powers of the legislature in particular. We even have some cases where the executive is quarreling with the judiciary because the judiciary is not independent. It's not independent. So, and that's a challenge for the generality of the urban and the rural people. So there's need for us to ensure that there's good governance in the area of ensuring that there's public accountability, there's public transparency, so that we can have good governance in place, management of our resources. Every state is going to Abuja, cap and hand to ensure that Abuja give them something every month. That is very it's not healthy at all. There's lack of creativity at the state level because everybody depends on Abuja. There's lack of creativity. There's lack of, even competence at the level of the state to generate. The states are well endowed, we know. There's also a problem of infrastructure, as rightly showed up there, and of course, all these put together causes why Nigeria is ranked ahead of just Syria and Bangladesh in terms of livable city. So we really have a serious problem. In fact, those countries that are working, we have to run because we have serious problem. We have deficit in infrastructure. It is obvious we have no security. Look at Abuja and Kaduna. A lot of people are using the rail network. If you have somebody who is going to use the rail of 165 kilometers from here to Abuja now, is the person that afraid. So we really have a serious problem. So it's left for the governors to ensure good governance by allowing the judiciary, allowing the legislature to, have some level of independence. But for this to happen, we must have the legislative arm of government, some level of independence. As it is now, with a large number of them elected or influenced by the governor, then I think it is a very, very difficult task to imagine that we are going to be giving a good governance at the level of what the state will have. There's no look at development. Development is concentrated on the city capital. So we hope that when the legislatures are independent, judiciary is independent, a lot of local development is going to take place. There's also no savings culture. The way the governors are, it is obvious that, even post-COVID, the country is borrowing. The states are in trouble, they're in difficulty. Even at a number of states, in fact, the last case report that put together, only Lagos has generated internal revenue of all the states put together. So we have serious problem of even independence of the state from the federal, from the center. So we really need to reorganize them to make sure that the states are capable of delivering good governance, because as it is now, with the state executive essentially dominating the financial appropriation process, influencing those who are in the judicial, the legislature, then of course there's a problem of good governance, and of course because the governors know that they cannot be held to account, they are not held accountable. Some of the governors are in the National Assembly, in the Senate, so, and that's a serious problem for us. So we need to ensure that at the state level, the legislature, the judiciary, to a large extent, is independent. Otherwise, we're going to continue to have these problems of instability, problems with our access to quality education, problems with our infrastructure, quality of road network, quality of our public transport is very poor. Our international airports in particular. In fact, the Bole International Airport at Addis Ababa is even better than the best Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport that Abuja has to offer. So we have serious problem. Okay, look at the availability of quality housing program. Most of people today in Kaduna are living in those housing estates that Shagari last built. And the quality of housing is a major problem. Housing is a human right. It's a human right. And governments are not talking about, mass housing projects at all. It's a problem. Okay, there's also a problem of energy provision. It's so poor. I mean, it's so appalling. If you travel out of the country, energy is not a problem. We have not been able to provide the energy. The water, I mean, in quite a number of countries we have been to, I mean, water is taken for granted, energy is taken for granted, telecommunication is taken for granted. We cannot say the same thing in this environment. So, and why? Because the governors are too powerful. They are too powerful. And why are they so powerful? Because there's no, separation of powers between the executives, the state assemblies, and the judiciary. And that's why the governors are very, very powerful. In fact, I remembered recently, I spoke with a former governor who said that he's missing his house because 3 times daily, there were people who line up queuing to feed, from him in his house somewhere there up, So that was his minimum standard to improvise the people for them to continue to be begging. He thought it's a way of life. So we have to take a responsibility within the opportunity that we have to continue to talk about the area we can talk about, particularly good governance and the way good governance can take place. In particular, that's easily accessible is to ensure that the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, everybody have separate powers as they have been granted by law, and ensure that it works that way, so that the governors can be called to account and be checked at the state level, so that they can be responsible for quality of education, in their various states. Okay, you can agree with me that apart from Lagos State, where probably, of course, the reason is very clear. A number of economies from Lagos, shipping is in headquarters in Lagos, banking is essentially headquarters in Lagos. So the economy in Lagos is doing well. But if we allow what we call this physical separation for the executive, separate from the legislature, separate from the judiciary, there will be innovation, there will be independence, which will lead to innovation, creativity, that will allow them to create, to think of how money can be generated, so that we can have democracy properly functioning in Nigeria. As it is now, the state governors are too powerful, and I think that is not going well for democracy in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for the presentation. I sincerely have to say, yes, you've been able to touch all the challenges that the country, specifically the state in Nigeria are going through. You've been able to mention that there can never be good governance where there's no separation of power between judiciary and the legislature as well as the executive. I agree with you totally that our judiciary today is an extension the executive. And that is why, as you said, we have poor quality of health system, poor quality of education, instability, corruption, and so on and so forth. Uh, I want to say once again a big thank you. I know that you have some questions to answer during the course of the presentation. I have one or two questions that have been highlighted for you. But before then, I want to believe that Mr. Shegun Awusonya is in the house now.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, I have the joy to welcome you to this special webinar. You must have heard what Mr. Dr. Dr. Nikwe Yaya has said, and I know that you want to build on that as relate to the Nigerian police in providing us good services, as well as reducing violence in the society. Once again, Mr. Shegun Awusonya, you are welcome on board. Over to you, please.
Thank you very much, sir. So this, talking about the post-COVID-19 good governance and prospects and challenges for promoting the socioeconomic well-being of the urban and rural masses. I thank the good doc that I've spoken extensively, about, I don't know if my video is on, but who have spoken extensively about the need to take personal responsibility and to also hold government to account as far as security of the nation is concerned. I'm going to be speaking briefly, on the need, for us to understand how the nation works and policies and practices to ensure the Nigerian police provide a more reliable police service to promote social cohesion, safety of Nigerians, and reduction in violence, every single individual in any society.
Hello, Mr. Awusonya, can you hear me? Mr. Awusonya, Shegun, can you hear me, please? I think we have a poor network from your side.
Talk and see if it makes any difference. Can you still hear me, sir?
Yeah, you're better now.
Oh, okay, it's better now.
Yeah.
Okay, do I start again, or you didn't hear me at all?
Yeah, maybe you can start from the third paragraph of your statements.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Sorry for the network breach. Again, I was just saying that it is the will and desire of every individual living in any society to live in a society that is deemed a civilization. And the qualities, the prior and major qualities of any civilization is law and order and basically taxation, in order for the government to be able to have resources in order to provide the necessary social contract for the people to live and thrive within a society. So today, I just want to emphasize on the policies and practices to ensure the Nigerian police provide a more reliable police service to promote social cohesion, safety of Nigerians, and reduction in violent crimes. Over the years, I have been favored and fortunate to work with an organization called Social Intervention Advocacy Foundation, which is focused on holistic deep dive into advocacies geared towards the criminal justice system, especially as pertaining to police welfare and reform. And we have undertaken over 17 analyses over the last 4 years. It is a task that will require an international or intentional and deliberate commitment from all stakeholders to achieve and implement best practices. We know that, as it were, we have, well, before now, even before the protests that we see from the citizenry who are tired of being a victim of systemic problems, it has become a catalyst, and also a watershed. But as we heal as a nation, we must heal our policing. We must begin to engage that which is good, that will emerge from that phoenix and the fire. And in the process of rebuilding this, we look at the activities of different organizations and collaboration that is tends towards building a bridge over the institutional gap that we have. How do we begin to get our police structure to work? How has police structure gotten to where it has gotten to? We need to begin to understand that the police, the Nigerian police as a whole, was actually the biggest in Africa at some point. It was actually the brain of intelligence in Africa as a whole, not only in Nigeria, which begins to inform the reason why every military administration that we've had in the past had police officers as members of their cabinets while they were in power. And this went on. Hello, can you still hear me?
Very well, just go on, please. You are good.
Okay, so in the 60s, you will find that every military administration, as at that time, were having police officers and police chiefs as their members of their cabinet. And the intelligence of police then was actually what was driving the nation. But over the years, through the military interregnum and the various unfortunate coup d'etat that we had, it was actually blamed on the police system because they believe that they are the ones that have access to intelligence and can actually tell when there's going to be a problem or not. So because of that, police were gutted and decimated over time, where MDAs were cut out of them without actually benefiting the budgets of the police. So over the years, we had the police being gutted of their intelligence, which led to the creation of the National Security Organization, NSO, which later became the DSS, which later led to the cutting down of the police department, like into the traffic unit, into EFCCs and the rest of other agencies that was cut out of the police, thereby creating a police system that is void of its intelligence, void of its tactics, void of its operations, or all the things that were actually ingredients to their supremacy as at then. They used to be the biggest as at that time, even bigger than the military. But today, the police is a shadow of itself. How do we return to those days where we have a police system? Because the police itself is the closest authority to the people. And if you fix the police, you actually fix the 50% of Nigeria's problem. So how do we begin to go about it? And it starts with legislation. Apart from understanding the problem of what the essentiality of the police in society, we need to look at policies. How do we begin to look at legislation? How do we begin to know what to tweak in order to fix our policing system? The problems that we have today that has permeated through the structure, thereby leading into what we call the culture of impunity, which makes those who are meant to protect us become our predators and makes us victims of a system that's supposed to protect and make us feel alive within the polity. It is basically because of neglect, years of neglect. It is not something to do with pointing fingers at this administration or that administration. These are structural problems that even start with the law that actually created the police itself. And we're talking about the Police Act of 1943. And if that is anything to go by, it begins to tell us how the police was actually created, to reinforce an interregnum or to reinforce a dictatorial rule, beginning from the years of foreign rule, when we have the rule of the crown of the British crown. And now when that power was transferred even into our Nigerian democratic rule, the police was not actually changed policy-wise. They were still to protect the rulership from the ruled. And over the years, we have been agitating, whether you want to talk about what has been happening from 2012 till now, the various police reform agitations that have led to different policies and white papers that were never implemented. But we thank God that over the years, through collaborations of CF and several other entities, we've been able to coagulate all and to bring together all that have been done in time past and to push forward what is called the Police Act of 2020. The Police Act of 2020 was enacted earlier this year, and what it does principally was to, one, reposition the police to uphold the rule of law, to actually prioritize fundamental human rights according to the African Charter and every other charter that Nigeria has been signatory to. Secondly, is also to open up the police to operate based on transparency and accountability. And thirdly, and most fundamentally, to collaborate with other organizations that can actually enhance its operations in society. In other words, this particular act brought about the need to have also, since we have always been pointing at paucity of funds and the rest, to have another, there was another act that was also promulgated, enacted to actually ensure that we have a police trust fund that will be an intervention fund to ensure that police have training and retraining and also equip them, in all forms of their operational strata, whether you are looking at equipping them with weapons, or whether we are looking at training, whether you're looking at their operations in engaging the public. So when you look at all these things put together, the government themselves are beginning to acquiesce, because it's not easy for you to relinquish power. Because what you are saying, when you are telling the Nigerian authorities to actually make police independent, to give them independence operation, or the freedom of operation and all without political interferences, you are saying whittle down your power. Because whether we like it or not, the police get their orders from the state, from the presidency. And so by the time you are telling the presidency to reform the police, you are saying, give the police back to the people. That's a difficult thing, but that has been done with this Police Act of 2020. And more is being done, being looked into the police welfare, being looked into the police operations, being looked into the police pensions, because the problems are there. We know that every time you tell police officers that they are going on training, they know they are going to jail. They know they are going to be punished, because police training is more or less nothing to write home about before now. But now all those things are being looked into. Police are now being repositioned for service delivery. In other words, by the time you begin to look at fundamental human rights of the people, you begin to look at the rule of law, you begin to look at the rule that begin to say that, that begin to prioritize the importance of Administration of Criminal Justice Act, the importance of Anti-Torture Act, the importance of Human Rights Act, the importance of every single legislation that have been put in place to ensure that we have a society that is worthy of being called a nation. So these are examples of things that we needed to be put in place and things that need to be hold accountable, or things that we need to hold government accountable to. Then we begin to fix policies. We begin to look at policies and practices that will ensure that Nigerian police provide a more reliable police service to promote social cohesion, safety of Nigerians, and reduction in violent crimes. Most fundamentally, also, we need to also.
Dr. Wilson,
I'm rounding up now. I'm rounding up now. So what exactly can we take away from this? Police itself in operations must move, from the culture of impunity towards intelligence-led policing and the principles of community policing. What is community policing precisely? It is about engaging the community enough to know that the police are the public and the public are the police, so that we can win enough trust to be able to allow the public to relate with the police as though they are one and the same, so that information and intelligence can be shared properly. And this is the best way in which one can govern a society in peace and with prosperity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Osaya, for the articulating points about restructuring Nigerian police. You did mention one striking thing about how police system has been disrupted as a result of the military takeover, and that's part of why we're having so many challenges now, as so many other paramilitary has been taken from police force and so on and so forth. Needful to say much about what you've said. I have about 2-3 questions for you, which I want you to do justice for under 1 minute. You can bring all the responses together under 1 minute. This question is being asked by one senior lecturer from Kaduna, Dr. Ladile Ayola. He wants to know the type of policy that are needful to inculcate moral in police force and to ensure that culture of equity and justice in the rank and file of the police is maintained. The second question is, what are the appropriate motivation that are needed for them to serve in terms of patriotism and be able to deliver their services very well. The last question from Okula Jataiwo, as a lecturer too, you want to know what are the roles of community leaders to checkmate police human rights and abuse in Nigeria. Just 1 minute before I go to Dr. Yaya.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I've actually answered most of the questions that have been asked in my presentation, Absolutely. But I'm just going to stress a little bit on this. If you pick two police officers of the same rank, you will realize that they don't earn the same salary because of haphazard deductions from their salaries based on the IPPIS system. So, and police itself, as situated as being a paramilitary organization, do not have the rights to protest. They cannot protest because they will be deemed, they will be charged for mutiny. So with that, there is no voice. There has been a gap. There's no voice that can actually advocate for anything that is actually buffeting them in getting their services out. When you look at promotions, there are people within the police structure who have not been promoted in the last 10 years because they don't know people. If you look at the way police enrollment and recruitment are done, they have a lot of, about 80% influence of 80% political influence. So in other words, most of the people who are getting pushed into the system are not actually people who are willing to serve their nation, but people who are looking for another means to earn a living. So you cannot rule out the commercialization of policing as a service within the structure. So how do we combat this? It is by the public owning the police as their own. It is by the removal of that gap, by building a bridge over it, where everybody is a stakeholder within the police structure of Nigeria. And by taking such responsibility, we can begin to hold government to account to lapses in their responsibility to the police community or to the police institution. And I'll give you an example. The activities of Social Intervention Advocacy Foundation, that's the organizers of the NSAS Reform Police NG Advocacy, which has been running for years now, which led to the promulgation of, or the passing of those bills and the rest that I've just mentioned that have become law in Nigeria today. That's an example of community intervention in policing. And if you look at also what I mentioned, the principle of community policing, which begins to engage, make police officers not only engaging the public when they are prosecuting crime, but they coming to schools to teach students, coming to societies to talk to landlord associations, going to the markets to ensure that people in the market understand how police can serve them better. This way, they will see police as their friend, actually, and it will begin to help mend the gaps that we have. So in rounding up, we all have responsibility to play. We can't leave everything to government. Thank you.
Thank you. Talking about responsibility to play, and this question is to Dr. Yaya, and this person wants to know what are the roles of the people to enhance check and balances between the legislators, the judiciary, as well as the executive. Over to you, Dr. Yaya.
Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Very well, doctor. I can hear you.
I want to thank the person for asking the question, and those people didn't even ask question at all. To say people be able to be independent in the current economic situation. Some level of economic independence for the people to be able to provide the kind of needed space to put pressure on the executive during elections to ensure that the executive will allow the other arms of government to be to have people are highly independent to occupy those positions. As it is, and as I've said earlier, we have governors, quite a number of people who are elected in the legislatures, voice of the governors, and when they occupy the place, they're not going to remove the governor regardless of the excesses of the governor. So that's why the governors are very powerful. So I think first, the people need some kind of economic power, some level of standard of living. To be able to make, to be in a situation where they'll be able to, elect leaders of their choice freely without, control from the governor. As it is now, I think it will have a lot of problem to have to depend on the government. We have to have also, the present system is not workable. There's too much role for government at what level. So government is too big. We have to have a small government. Government is too attractive. We have to have the informal sector providing leadership, so for the economy to grow and for people to be able to elect the leaders of their choice, to be able to hold the governors accountable. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lastly, from this section, Mr. Awosanya, there's this question for you, even though you've been able to mention part of it. This person wants to know, how do we ensure community policing effectively in Nigeria? I appeal to you to spend just 30 seconds on this question.
Okay. All right, thank you. The idea of community policing is not the Amotekons and the other local entities that you have. Those entities that you're seeing are meant to collaborate with police to work together. But the idea behind community policing, effective community policing itself as a principle, is for us to engage the police across our social life. Whether you're talking about students in school at different levels, whether you're talking about in community associations or community groups or landlord associations or so, by them knowing that police are just a call away, a text message away, not only when they're even reporting crime, but when they want to know how they can help the police community or how the police community can be of help to them. A community that is thoroughly engaged by the police, where youths grow up before their very own eyes. There's no means to extrajudicially kill anybody or to accuse anybody of crimes that they know nothing about, because you know these people and they know you. So this is exactly the idea behind the principle of community policing. It's about a fusion of the police into the society and a fusion of the society into the police. So you know who you are dealing with. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We need to go to the next topic, which will be handled by Mr. Kazim. I don't know. It's the head of Media and Communication, National Commission for Refugees. If you're in the house, we want to listen to you, the sources that have been recorded in terms of integration of internally displaced people as relate to Northeast and the challenges ahead of them. Over to you. Is Mr. Akazim Abdul Kadir in the house, please? While we still wait for his flight to land at the airport, I want to call on Dr. Atta Zubar Jide. Is a gender expert, and when it comes to gender, a lot of people will ask, why does a man talk about gender? Gender doesn't have anything to do with a man or woman. So I'm sure Dr. Jide will be able to do justice when it comes to issue of gender dimension in planning governance, specifically in Nigeria and under the democratic system that we practice. Over to you, Dr. Jide Atta. Dr. Jide Atta, are you in the house, please?
Yes. This is very annoying.
Yes. Oh, yes, I am in the house. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be part of this. It's a privilege for me to speak. I've turned off my video for obvious network reasons. I'll first of all like to congratulate Haja Hawa. It's her birthday today. And so we wish you all the best in the coming year. A quick one, I will just talk for a few minutes. My presentation is already on. And all I'm talking about in terms of governance is a man and woman affair. There can be no governance without the male or the female, which makes up collectively what we call the population. And if we have a population, that means governance is all about harnessing the resources that have been created or established to ensure that the man and woman within the population get a peaceful coexistence. And that I can equate to the term development. Now, gender is a dynamic discourse in political agitations, she's a feminist. And if it's a man making these agitations, he's termed a patriarch. I mean, a patriarchal person. And this animated man as subject and situate the man. Let us examine the pathway of the Nigerian woman, particularly from the woman point of view now, because it takes a partnership. And in most cases in the Nigerian context, it is men that take the decisions in politics and economics to the detriment of the woman. Gender is not a favor that you are doing to somebody, it's a right. It's a human right to have whatever affects you or decisions you're going to take. You should be a part of that decision making. And that's why I advocate for an equality in terms of governance. Now, views of democracy, and I emphasize what speaker, Dr. Yaya. This the African context, which keeps mutating and mutating and mutating. So be involved in any decision making. I've heard people talk about policing and all that. We've talked about the structures of governance. We've talked about the structures of the responsibilities of the three tiers of government and everything. If the women are not equally involved, then it is very difficult. I'm not a female, so how can I take a decision for a female about things that affect her? So in issues of governance, we have to factor this as a right and not as a favor, as is being done now. I'm even advocating that we scrap the Ministry for Women Affairs because I think it's an insult on women. We should just have a ministry, a federal ministry for equal opportunities, and that comes from the very structure of governance, planning, and policy. So perhaps what is a pioneer consultant with the World Bank agitated for when she was trying to design something in the field of agri-economics. And that has been the yardstick for most of the World Bank decisions all over the developing world now. When she said, the bullet, let's look at the military perspective. The bullet does not know male, it does not know female. It just kills. I don't know where anywhere people have said that this bullet I'm shooting, that person gets killed or injured. Likewise, when we are taking decisions, for example, in terms of economic distribution of resources, we find out that women are the mainstay of any economy in the world. Untapped GDP tells us that women make up about 52% of the population. And 52% of that population, if you look at the calculation, if you look at the variables within that, you find that women are more of the economic providers than the men. Agriculture, we have more farmers. Even in the field of politics, you have more women politicking, you have more women canvassing for votes, you have the women who are the ones that will protect the votes while the men sit down in the beer parlors and take pepper soup or drink a bottle of beer or just sit down and discuss over a game of football. So all these things that I'm talking about are tires. If you do not factor in the woman, if you do not factor in the male, then I don't think you're doing anything worthwhile in terms of governance. I will stop for now. The final details of my presentation are already with the organizers, which can be shared online for the sake of time. Over.
Thank you, Dr. Jide Atta. We've heard what he said. We are sorry, can we all put a mic on mute? Yeah, he has talked about the fact that there cannot be good government without the involvement of women, and he's advocating for equality when it comes to issue relating to women and men. And very striking, he said that he's asking for the abolition of Ministry of Women Affairs. Don't get him wrong. He rather prefer Ministry of Gender as against Ministry of Women Affairs. And like he said, it's more of asking women that you should be recognized by force. No, he wants a situation where we have equal rights, and that is when we can talk about good governance. Just quick one on the side part. Madam Mawa Bako has said that she would have loved to invite all of you to her house, but because of social distance, the birthday has been postponed until further notice when the federal government has declared no more social distance. So we'll postpone the birthday till next time while we look forward for the goat and chicken. I want to just know if we have on board now Mr. Akazim Abdullahi. Do we have him on board? If the answer is no, then I'm going to call my friend Awa Shakarau, the chairperson of Nigerian Bar Association, Abuja branch. That's the chairwoman, if you allow me to say that, of Nigerian Bar Association, Abuja branch. Are you in the house? Oh, Awa Shakarau is just logging in. I can see her coming on board. Yes, she's here. I just introduced you now, Ms. Awa Shakarau, the chairperson of Nigerian Bar Association, Abuja branch. She will be talking about Nigerian human rights scorecard and how it can be further improved and sustained in Nigeria. Over to you. I'm sure she's having some technical challenges. I can't. Oh, you're here.
Yeah.
It's good to see you. Welcome on board. I hope the flight was not delayed.
Not delayed at all. At least I got here as I wanted to.
Oh, great. So now I'm handing over.
Okay, so it's my turn to speak now, right?
Absolutely. In respecting gender issues, so it's your turn to speak.
I'm not sure I'm talking about gender issues. I'm talking about the human rights scorecard.
Absolutely.
And what can be done to improve it. That was the topic given to me.
You are very right.
Okay, and I have a presentation to share. Okay.
The technical crew is doing that. Just give us a few seconds.
Okay. But let me start by recognizing and appreciating the fellow panelists on the platform. I want to really thank God. I was really racing to be sure I get here before the end of the presentation. I truly apologize. When I accepted to speak, I completely forgot that I had made a commitment to go to Kuje under my NGO as a project we're doing, and we needed to see the chief of, go on an advocacy visit. But I'm glad I've been able to. I had told Howard that I will be here around 12 o'clock, so I'm glad I was able to make it. Can I share now?
Yes, please share, please share.
Okay. It's telling me host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Yeah. Try again, it's gonna work now.
Okay. All right, yes, I can see sharing now. What's happening?
Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay.
Just to let you know that you have 10 minutes, please.
Okay, and I'm trying to bring it up and it's not enabling me.
Can you press F5 in your system?
F5.
F5.
Okay, awesome.
Have you done that?
Yes, I have.
Then maybe you should come down. Just come down to the right hand side of your cursor. Good. No, you've gone back.
Yeah, but I can't see. I can't see the. Okay, yeah, okay, great. Excellent. So my topic is Nigeria's human rights scorecard and how it can be improved and sustained. And now you've given me 10 minutes. I don't know what I can do in 10 minutes. I guess since I know other speakers would have spoken about human rights, I think I will just shelve the definitions. Of course, we all know what human rights are. I need to go to my next slide, which talks about basic international human rights instruments. These are the treaties and instruments that codify the regime of human rights globally. And most of these treaties, Nigeria is a signatory to all of them, like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, 1965, International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, and Degrading Treatment or Punishment, 1984, and then Convention on the Rights of the Child, International Convention on the Protection of the Rights of All Migrant Workers, quite a number of them. Nigeria signed and ratified them. Unfortunately, if you look at our
our 1999 Constitution as amended, Section 12 says that any international treaty or instrument signed and ratified by Nigeria cannot have automatic application until it has gone through the normal lawmaking process in Nigeria. In other words, no matter what how beautiful the international treaty is, Nigeria signs and ratifies. Before it can be of application as a law in this country, it must be passed by the National Assembly. And a very important case that propounded this principle is Attorney General of the Federation against Attorney General of Ondo State. The case was decided in 2002. It's reported in Nigeria Weekly Law Report and all that. And the decision of the Supreme Court is very clear on the fact that the provisions of Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, they are not justiciable. In other words, you cannot compel their implementation. Now, I think one of the things I didn't mention before referring to this case is the fact that most of these international instruments that deal with fundamental human rights, they are already codified in our Constitution in Chapter 2 and Chapter 4. Chapter 2 deals with fundamental principles and state objectives, while Chapter 4 is the one that deals with the human rights that are justiciable, such as right to life, right to freedom of expression, and what have you. Whereas the ones that are socioeconomic rights, they are contained in Chapter 2. But then, as we saw in the case of AG Federation versus Attorney General of Ondo State, they are not justiciable, as in you cannot go to court, for instance, to compel government to provide housing for everybody as codified in the Constitution. Now, it is also important that before you can even think of saying that, okay, we want an international instrument to have application in Nigeria, it must first be ratified by the Nigerian government. After ratifying, the next step is to ensure that these instruments are domesticated and passed as local laws in Nigeria. And that is why, for instance, we have ratified regional human rights instruments, such as the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, and the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, which today have become laws in Nigeria. Now, another important, we've also seen the Child Rights Act. It is a product of an international instrument that has now been ratified, and domesticated in Nigeria. Trafficking in Persons Prohibition, Enforcement and Administration Act is also a product of an international instrument that has been domesticated in Nigeria. Discrimination Against Persons with Disability Prohibition Act. This is one of the latest international instruments that has been domesticated in Nigeria through the promulgation of this act. We also have the Anti-Torture Act, the Universal Basic Education, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, the HIV/AIDS Anti-Discrimination Act. These are all products of international instruments. Now, there are also other policies with human rights implications in Nigeria. I have enlisted them in this slide. National Standard for Improving the Quality of Life of Vulnerable Children in Nigeria, National Policy on Child Labor, and so on and so forth. They are there. I hope you'll be able to share my slide with participants so that they can go. Now, so it takes me to the meat of my presentation. What is the current state of human rights in Nigeria? In May 2019, President Buhari was re-elected as President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for a second term in an election that was alleged to be marred by political violence with so many lives lost. Boko Haram insurgency as of 2019 entered its 10 years consistent attacks on Nigeria. And the clashes between security forces and the Boko Haram factions has led to the killing of an estimated 27,000 civilians and 37 aid workers. In 2019 alone, 640 civilians were killed, 405 children were killed, and 105 adopted in 2018. These are all information that are out there in the online. They are also there on social media. Of course, 2020, we recall in the last couple of weeks, some rice farmers were butchered in their rice farms by these Boko Haram terrorists. Now, the military's decision in August 2019 to withdraw troops from countryside outposts into super camps in the Northeast impeded humanitarian access and left communities vulnerable to attacks. The number of attacks, there are so many that if I am to document them, we might have up to 30 slides. Now, this act of military has resulted in the withdrawal of security for 223,000 people in the Northeast, and widespread kidnapping, banditry, and recurring cycles of deadly violence between herdsmen and farmers. The clampdown on peaceful protesters, arrest and detention of activists, and media repression, depicting the Nigerian government's intolerance of free speech and dissent. And this is in a democratic setting. In January 2020, about 20 people were killed by Boko Haram when the group ran in Borno State. In February 2020, 8 people were killed by a suicide bomb attack by suspected insurgents in Maiduguri, Borno State. Former Governor Kashim Shettima of Borno State survived an attack by suspected insurgents during a campaign tour to Gamboru Ngala community with at least 3 people killed. In September 2020, the convoy of Governor Babagana Umaru Zulum was attacked by suspected insurgents and 4 persons were killed in the said attack. In June 2020, triple suicide bombings rocked Konduga in Borno State, killing about 30 and injuring about 40 others. In December 2020, over 300 secondary school students were kidnapped by suspected Boko Haram terrorists in Katsina State. In fact, the information we have is that there are about 520 students. The conduct of security forces have also affected human rights negatively. The failure of presidential judicial panel set up in August 2017 to investigate the military's compliance with human rights obligations, allegations of war crimes and other abuses. They are yet to, till this very moment, to come up with any report. The failure of the Presidential Panel of Inquiry 2018 to make public their investigations on abuses by SARS operatives. We also have just a minute, please, I think. Okay, I think there was a mix-up. We also have the crackdown by security forces on members of the Shia Islamic movement of Nigeria protesting the detention of their leader, Sheikh Ibrahim El-Zakzaki and his wife. And we know a lot of people lost their lives during that crackdown. Herdsmen reign of terror in southern Kaduna, Plateau and Benue states, banditry and kidnapping in Zamfara, Katsina, and other neighboring states, kidnappings and robberies along Kaduna, Abuja Highway and Abuja Lokoja Highway, public sector corruption, intolerance to same-sex relations and gender non-conformity by this government, suppression of freedom of expression, media and association, and this is documented by the military raiding of Daily Trust in January 2020, and detaining of staff for publishing classified military information. Nigeria Broadcasting Corporation suspension of AIT and Ray Power FM for allegedly airing inflammatory and inciting programs. DSS threats and arrest of social media users. Arrest of Omoyele Sowore in 2019 on allegations of planning insurrection aimed at forceful takeover of government through his call for a revolution now. The crackdown on peaceful NSAS protesters in Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, Jos, and other Nigerian states protesting police brutality, and the subsequent shooting and killing of some protesters at the Lekki toll gates. The freezing of the accounts of and filing of charges against some celebrities and social media influencers for allegedly sponsoring the NSAS protests. The pushing of social media bills with a view to clamp down on social media freedom in Nigeria. This is one of several human rights infractions that have happened in Nigeria. And I'm saying this because these are very current statistics which can be corroborated by going through the internet and social media to see that these things actually are happening on a daily basis. There is a complete state of insecurity in practically every part of the country. You know, so much so that we don't know whether we are at war with ourselves or we are at war with another country. The situation in Nigeria is indeed a very, very pitiable circumstance. There's completely a breakdown in law and order. And I must say that if the signs that depict, you know, a society that is failing, I think that signs are completely available. I mean, the signs of what we are seeing in Nigeria is a sign of a society that is completely breaking down. People go to sleep with one eye open, not knowing what will become of them. People no longer travel anymore. The highways are not safe. The villages, because you travel to the village, you could be a candidate of kidnapping and all stuff. Now, what are the practical ways of improving human rights in Nigeria? I think there is need for this government to ensure that the provisions of economic and social rights to Nigerians by legislating laws that allows for the enforcement of Chapter 2 until we make Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution as amended enforceable and justiciable. We will continue to you know, be in a situation where hunger is pervading every part of this country, and economic and social rights can never, ever be guaranteed for the citizens of Nigeria. I think Section 6, subsection 6, paragraph C of the 1999 Constitution is very instrumental here. This will go a long way in providing employment for the largely unemployed population and reduce the number of those engaging in crimes as a means of livelihood. And until we do that, crime will continue to be on the increase in Nigeria.
You have just one more minute to go.
Yes, I'm almost finishing. There is also a very important need to provide affordable, reliable, and accelerated access to justice. Most people today are beginning to resort to self-help rather than going to court, because they believe that going to court is a waste of time. So when somebody's rights are being trampled upon, rather than go to court in order to get redress, they decide to take the law into their hands. And this has led to a series of communal clashes and a lot of conflicts within the society. There is need for a holistic reformation of the Nigerian security agencies. I think Nigerians have spoken this time to that number. And to see the government playing deaf and dumb is, to say the least, unacceptable and completely, not something that is good to say. We need to completely change the entire gamut of the Nigerian security agencies so that we can, there can be a breath of new fresh air, and we can be able to observe human rights in accordance with international best practices. And then there's need to improve the welfare of law enforcement agents through training and retraining of security officers on the use of modern ammunitions and technology, and procurement of modern ammunitions and technology for security will go a long way in encouraging officers and protecting the lives and properties of Nigerians. When you hear of a clash between the law enforcement agents and insurgents or robbers, the Nigerian law enforcement agents are usually at the receiving end, because their equipment, their ammunitions, the technology of their ammunitions leaves so much to be desired. We need to really face reality in that case. Lastly, there is need to operate an open and transparent government that encourages rather than clamp down on freedom of expression, speech, media, and association. This is so important because these are the cardinal principles of a democratic society. And we cannot claim to be practicing a democracy when there is no freedom of expression, there's no freedom of speech, the media cannot have the free reign to operate as is available in other democratic societies. I think this is the last of my points. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. I'm sincerely impressed with your presentation, and you said it all, that the human rights situation in Nigeria is on a pitiable situation, and that's why one of the audience is asking this question, which I think you've answered during your presentation, but you may possibly just have to reiterate it for 30 seconds. The lady wants to know that with all the instrument and human rights declaration, why does our leader still violate the rights of the citizens in Nigeria? Over to you for 30 seconds.
Yes, I think it's also a function of, in a democratic society, we have the led and the leaders. In a democratic setting, each has a role to play. We as citizens need to hold our leaders accountable. But if you look at what is going on, people don't speak up. Even when things are going wrong, people don't speak up. You can see the NSAS protest, how it ended. It was the same, some hoodlums who are also citizens, members of the society, who came to attack, to foment trouble and discredit the NSAS protest. So at the end of the day, the citizens are the ones that are at the receiving end. It takes courage to be able to stand and fight for your rights. And so when there is failure to implement some of these instruments, some of these laws, we have to take the bull by its horn by going to court and compel the observance of these laws. And that is why, if you notice, during the exercise protest, there were people who went to court in order to challenge the government on some of these issues. And unfortunately, you will find that it is some Nigerians that will be attacking those people for wanting to hold government accountable. So whether we like it or not, the masses are the ones that are at the receiving end. So there is need for us all to come together, forge a common front, and be able to hold our leaders accountable. I think that is the most important point that we need to pay attention to.
Thank you so much once again. We will be taking the last presentation. I'm not sure Mr. Akazim is still in the house. So I'm going to call on the last person here, Sadatu Falia Amu. That's the managing partner of Amu Lega. She's going to just quickly look at the pros and cons of the proposed social media. I know that the last presenter has spoken briefly about social media, the issue of social media billing as related to freedom of expression and association. So if you're in the house, Sadatu Falila Hamu, over to you, please. Well, I'm sure the presenter is not in the house. Madam, just one more question before I try to bring this webinar to a close. This person says right violation has come to a stale in Nigeria. People speak up. He said you should correct him if he's wrong or not, that people need to speak. However, it is usually hijacked and makes the entire process to host. How do we effectively ensure against rights violation in our nation? I hope you got that question. Please unmute your speaker. Unmute your speaker, please.
Okay. Yes, I was saying that the question is just like the previous question.
Absolutely.
When your right is violated, insist on seeking redress. Insist on going to court to seek redress. We cannot continue to sweep everything under the carpet because, when you do that, then you continue to perpetuate the impunity that we are seeing, the culture of impunity that we are seeing. But when your rights are violated and you take it up, you go to court. For some people, one of the things that can discourage them from going to court is the fact of the lack of the needed resources to hire a lawyer and so on and so forth. Please suffice it to know that there are organizations that offer pro bono services. The Nigerian Bar Association is one of such organizations. We have the Human Rights Committee in every branch of the Nigerian Bar Association. The Abuja branch, which I head today as a chairman, has a Human Rights Committee. And we take up cases from people who cannot afford the services of lawyers. We take them up free of charge. So when your rights are violated, insist that they are enforced by going to court to seek a remedy for that. And one of the things we have seen, coming from the gender perspective, I have been in this business for over 20 years. When there are issues of sexual and gender-based violence, and people come to report, when you take up the matter and you go to court, in the middle of the process, they come back to tell you, oh, sorry, we have settled. Some will just find money and use it to settle. And at the end of the day, while trying to seek redress, the matter is abandoned halfway. This is one of the major reasons that has continued to breed the culture of impunity in our country. When you insist, come rain, come shine, that you must get justice, justice will be served, no matter how late or no matter how delayed it is. Justice must be served. And at the end of the day, you feel happy, you feel gratified, and importantly, it serves as a deterrent to other would-be perpetrators of some of these rights violations.
Thank you so much. I just want to reiterate what Osanya says here. He said there is need for us to keep engaging and collaborate, that we should not throw our hands in the air when trouble knocks. So I want to agree with you, Mr. Osanya, for this fantastic thing. Ladies and gentlemen, we've done justice to this wonderful webinar for today. In fact, all the scholars that are here today are fantastic. You've done great to today's webinar, and I'm sure Awa must have decided to bring today because today is her birthday, so that you have a memorable day to remember for 2020 that has been mixed with several mixed feelings. I just want to appeal to you that we should try as much as possible to have the proceedings of today's meeting. If it's possible, do a press release about it and see how we can keep to engage, like Mr. Wilson have said. I'm going to call on Madam Hawa Bako to please give us opening remarks and tell us where we are going to meet for the birthday thereof. Over to you, Hawa. Your speaker, please. Unmute your speaker. Unmute your speaker. Hello. Hello, Madam Hawa, are you in the house? Technical team.
Yeah.
He's here. You are here. Over to you. Over to you. Well, I think we've come to the end of the meeting, and I was asking whether you want to give us your opening remarks and possibly tell us where we'll meet after this webinar for the birthday celebration. So over to you.
Hello, can you come again? Was it me?
Yeah, there is no other person I have called but our Bako that we've done justice to today's meeting. Oh, Mr. Kazim Abdullahi, Mr. Kazim just came in now when we are closing. I'm sure maybe he had a delay in his flight. We're going to give you 5.5 minutes to speak. I will take the 4.5 minutes as punishment for your late coming. So can you quickly do justice to your presentation? On behalf of Mr. Kazim, I want to apologize for his late coming. He just texted me that he had a delay in his flight from Osogbo to Mushin back to Abuja. Over to you, Mr. Kazim. Mr. Akazem, over to you.
I'm really sorry that I'm joining this late at the tail end, but I'll try my best to speak on the topic. The reintegration of IDPs in the Northeast has been something that the government, the UN cluster system, and international and governmental organizations have been working on for the last 5 years. Once again, it is important to trace the trajectory of what has happened in the Northeast. Between 2009 and 2010, there was a large-scale displacement of people in the Northeast, which arise as an issue of the conflict between non-state actors known as Boko Haram and also the Nigerian state. When non-state actors go to communities, the first thing they do is that they cause wide place displacements by killing people, by destroying buildings, and people are forced to move out of these communities. We have seen this in Bama, we have seen this in Guzamala, we have seen this in Baga, we have seen this in Chibok, we have seen this all over the Northeast, including places like Michika, like Song, and the rest of it. One of the things that happens is that civil authority is immediately destroyed. That means the people who are part of the Emirate Council, the police, the soldiers, the court system, all displaced. They will have to leave. Like I mentioned at the beginning, in the last 5 years, we have seen the army winning back territories, especially as we saw in the build-up to the 2015 elections. We saw that the Nigerian army and the security architecture were able to win back territories. They were able to recover about 10 local governments in Borno State and about 3 local governments in Adamawa State. And because of these recoveries, rebuilding back the blocks that have been destroyed started in earnest. But I would like to state that because it's an asymmetrical warfare, there is no total peace in some of these places in Borno State and Adamawa State. But what we have seen is a large-scale reconstruction of schools, of hospitals, of police stations, of courts, of generally rebuilding the fabric of society. However, without peace, total rebuilding of these communities cannot take place. And as we have seen, the war hasn't really stopped. You know, the war is ongoing with the killing of farmers in Zabarmari a couple of weeks ago. We have seen that it's not only about rebuilding, it's about being consistent in providing security and safeguarding the lives and property of individuals. So sometimes I ask myself this question. Social cohesion is important, rebuilding is important, reintegration is important, but without peace, what would we have achieved? This is the question that we need to ask ourselves. So in as much as the government is trying, the UN cluster system is trying, international non-governmental organizations and national organizations are trying to rebuild, to reintegrate, and ensure that there's social cohesion, it's still not peace in total. And the lives and property of our people remains paramount. This is what I have to say. I'm really sorry that I came late, but I hope that we'll be able to enrich the conversation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Being late is not the issue here. What the striking thing I got here, you've been able to summarize all the presentation. You've been able to tell us that we have work to do. The crisis is there. And like I also said, we must come together to make sure that, because we don't have any other country to call ours. It's still about Nigeria. And the best we can do is to walk the talk. So I believe that the heads that I have here today, who have done wonderful presentations, by the time we come together as one, we'll be able to have one voice and be able to tell the government the right thing to do. Ms. Awa Bako, the chairperson of Bako Foundation, I have to call you now to do the vote of thanks of your last word for this presentation, which is the last webinar for 2020. We've done work together, even when I was the head of communication information for UNESCO, and we're still here together doing the work together. So can you give us your last words so we'll bring this wonderful meeting to a close? Over to you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate you all. Distinguished delegates, esteemed speakers, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank you all for participating in today's webinar. To our partners in UNESCO Abuja who have continuously supported this series, we're grateful. To all of our speakers who made out time for their busy schedules to honor us and at large honor the growth and development of Nigeria, we do not take your presence for granted. To our staff, volunteers, and general public, we say thank you. This event is particularly relevant in the context of our common aspiration to attain inclusive, sustainable development, peace and security, as well as respect for human rights globally, regionally, and at national levels. We have achieved so much with the few minutes we have spent here, and we promise many more engaging series to come. The event is finished, of course, but it does not stop from here. Let us put into practice what we learned and put to use the recommendation made by various speakers. I know I have enormously enjoyed today's lectures, and I hope you all did too. Like I earlier stated in my opening speech, your voice, engagement, and actions are needed more than ever, particularly as the world responds to unprecedented pandemic. We all can do better if we work together for a better Nigeria. We look forward to seeing you in our next webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you all, and have a very nice holiday. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And on behalf of the participants, on behalf of the speakers, we want to wish you a very big happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
Merry Christmas to all of you and Happy New Year in advance.
Yeah,
bye-bye.
Happy New Year in advance. Yeah, bye. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Happy birthday.
Bye. Thank you very much. I really appreciate. We actually had the birthday here on the Zoom meeting. Toast. Please, can we toast? Toast to everyone, can we? Thank you so much.
Yeah.